Hey guys, a little bit of a different video for you today. I went on a $200,000 Pokemon shopping spree these past couple of weeks, and I have an insane amount of inventory. In the last video I did a couple weeks ago with my collection, I showed that I normally bring around $150,000 worth of stuff to the shows. This $200,000 purchase completely blows that out of the water, more than double. So I'm going to have to pick and choose what I bring to the shows. So this video should be a little bit more informational because I'm going to go through the items and then tell you, what does really good, what doesn't do so good, and then kind of pick and choose from there. So hopefully you learn something, but without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, so starting on this side, I did pick up a good amount of sealed products. Now, these I normally won't even bring to the shows at all, except like the packs because they're a little bit easier to transport. But stuff like this magazine with the Snap promo, super cool items, but they're just kind of hard to transport to the shows. So all this kind of stuff I'll be selling online mainly. We got booster boxes over here, Shiny Star V, some older ones. This is Japanese Shining Legends, CP6, a very sought after set, and like got the 3-pack little blister hanger there. XY Break, this one's a really cool looking box, like a brick of gold. Again, I don't buy too many sealed products. This was kind of included, but they're all really neat. As you can tell from over there, I usually try to stick to graded items, but stuff like this makes kind of a novelty. So if you are like a local seller, this would be really cool, but with traveling and all that, it is a little bit cumbersome. And then of course, I bought a buttload of packs. So starting off, we have Jungle. I believe they're all art sets. So I had the short crimp, long crimp. You have Fossil. I think 2 art sets of Fossil down there. Recording with one hand, so a little bit harder to go through. But we have an Aquapolis art set over there. Expedition art set. And I think this Charizard pack might be heavy. Who knows? It's just heavier than the other packs. Got a bunch of base as well. Long crimp over there. And then shorter crimp over there. We have all the Neos, so we have a full art set of first edition Neo Genesis, very, very sought after. Then we have, I believe the rest are Unlimited, Neo Discovery, and then Neo Destiny. These packs do all right. It's a little bit easier to try and sell it as an art set. And then we have some, these are just like extra duplicates, so like base set that weren't part of the art set. Fossil, you got Gym Challenge, Gym Heroes, just loose booster packs like that. And in my experience, sealed stuff doesn't sell too well. Heavy packs, on the other hand, sell really, really fast. Like you can sell heavy packs all day, every day. It's like unweighed, and I weigh all mine just to sell as light or heavy. Pretty much all of these are light, so unless you're collecting for like an art set, then it's a little bit they're not too hard to sell, but they're not exactly super liquid either. Stuff like this is the first time I've ever owned these, so not too sure. I don't think they'll sell that fast either. Now these boxes, if you're like a rip and shipper as well, I'm sure you can you could break these open and then sell the packs individually, or I'm sure these boxes are good enough to sell like as is. So I'm sure I won't have any problem selling those really fast. Stuff like this, I usually try to keep stuff like this for myself because it's kind of cumbersome to ship this entire box. So something like this, I might break it open and then sell it piece by piece. And then of course, this is the king of the sealed, the Mario, Luigi sealed boxes. These are really hard to come by these days, and there's a lot of fakes going around. So it's definitely hard to get your hands on stuff like that. Stuff like this is worth bringing to shows because while it does take up a lot of space, like, you could probably bring 20 slabs instead of this. It is such a valuable item and sells really well or trades very well. Honestly, I might sell it before I even go to the show just because how in demand they are. And then in the back, you got Team Up Booster Box and Evolving Skies Booster Box. I'm actually going to keep those for myself, but in general, high-end booster boxes like that do really well, especially when they're like Team Up or Evolving Skies. Now, if you're going to bring like some of the lower end ones, like under $200 booster boxes, it's not really worth it for the space at least. So I tend to stay away from any of the newer sets or anything under $600, let's say. But everyone has their own little limit. You kind of got to gauge it based on the opportunity cost of what you can bring instead of that box. If it's a local show and you have like unlimited space, then by all means bring it. But for me, as someone that travels, the booster boxes and sealed in general do take up a lot of space, so you really have to weigh it against slabs, which we'll get to in a minute. I also did pick up some cases of Silver Tempest, Chilling Reign, just whatever booster boxes I could find cases, and then some Hidden Fates ETBs. I think those are pretty good. And then also this limited collection Master Battle set. I got 2 of these. And if you don't know, this, oh, I want that to fall. If you don't know, this one has that promo. I'll put it on the screen. It has 2 promos. Very, very valuable. I think they go for like, I don't know, $4,000 a box. And even more in PSA 10s. Here's a little bit of an overview of the slabs. This is the bread and butter. I mainly deal with slabs, so of course this is going to be a large chunk of what I buy. I'm going to put the camera down so we can go through every single one, and I'm going to tell you, what I kind of look for, how long I expect to have it, what does really good, what doesn't do so good, and we'll just go from there. First up, it needs absolutely no introduction at all. It is the Pikachu Gray Felt Hat, or the Van Gogh, whatever you prefer calling it, PSA 10. I ended up picking up 53 of these bad boys. That's right, almost to, what is that, like $25,000? Because currently December, 20th right now, these are going for over $500 each. These are absolutely iconic as well. I had a good amount last year during the shows, and these sell like absolute hotcakes. I might have sold like maybe 5 to 10 every single show. Everyone asks about them, whether they're 10s, raws, even like 9s, I will sell. So very, very liquid. This is as iconic as it gets these days. And they're just shooting up more and more now. Who knows? Some people think they'll be $1,000. I just think because there's so many, it maybe, I mean, who knows? No one really knows, right? But it would take an absolute Herculean spike for it to go to 1,000 just because of how many there are. But that's what people said when it was like $150, $200, and now it's already $500. So you can never know. But I picked up 53 of these bad boys. And yeah, let's go on to the next. Figured we'd do a lot of the bangers. So starting off, we have the Shinings. Now I have an absolute buttload of Shining Gyarados and Shining Magikarps. Some of these are double hollows. So if you don't know, there's an error, or like, I guess, a special version of the Shining Gyarados, Shining Magikarp, where a regular Shining Gyarados, you can see it's not too shiny. There's not that many hollows, especially on the clouds. And then on the double hollow, you can see it's like night and day. You can see that the double hollow has hollow all over, and then the regular does not at all. Don't know if the camera picks it up, but the double hollow is also a tad darker. It's a lot more apparent on the Shining Magikarp. You can see this is a regular one. See how it's like light blue? You can't see any shine over there. And then here is the double hollow error. It's a lot darker, pretty much all across the board, and the hollow is everywhere. The double hollow is worth more, and obviously because they look nicer. How much more? They're kind of hard to track. I just know they are worth more. But Shinies in general, especially Magikarp, Gyarados, always do really well. And I have, this is just from what I picked up. I also have maybe like 4 or 5 more already in the inventory. So we'll literally have nothing but, so this one's a little bit weird, 8.5, but 7s, 8s. I don't have any like high ones, like a First Ed 10 or anything like that. But these are well within most people's budgets. And Shining cards do strike a lot of nostalgia. So I try to get like those 8s and 7s where people can get it if it's like under 500 for most people. Next up, we have Shining Mewtwo. This one's more of a grail. First edition PSA 9, Shining Charizard regular 9, and then a bunch, I think I have every Shining in here. Kabutops 10. I have a bunch of Shining Tyrannotars as well. Raichu, Noctowl. I think there's a Steelix in there. But the Shinings in general do really good at the shows. People love trading for those. Everyone loves the Shinings, and they always do well. So I always pick these up when I can. All right, next up, I'm just kind of grabbing random stacks. We have Legendary Collection. Oh, I guess that's it. Legendary Collection Reverse Hollow. So we have the Charizard PSA 8. This one goes for a lot of money. These are also, I used to think these cards were fake, but they do look really cool. The Firework one, Gengar 5, and Venusaur 5. So I'd say Legendary Collection is also very sought after. Now, some of the less popular Pokemon won't do as well. Like if you have a, I don't know, like an Omanyte PSA 7, probably won't sell as good, But if you have stuff like Gengar, Charizard, the starters, all that good stuff, they will always sell pretty good. Then we have some Neo. I don't even know what the stack is. I guess I think this is all WotC Hollows, first edition maybe. So stuff like the first edition Lugia, these are people's grail cards. So something like this authentic card, it's pretty much, I think it's like worse than a 1, or well, yeah, look, it's super beat up. So this would be for someone who like really wants the Lugia card in first edition, but doesn't want to spend, you know, like an 8. You know, you can get the car just in pretty bad condition, but it's all slabbed up and it's like the cheapest way you can do it. So this is kind of like your budget hunter, and then this is for like, you know, you're trying to save up for your regular grail. Now for me, first edition is better than unlimited in, you know, pretty much every case. But all these like 8s, 9s, 7s, etc., like these kind of cards, to me, they do not sell that well. Like Vaporeon PSA 9, I tend to have a WotC dedicated display case. Ooh, look at that. Neo Revelations hollows. I think they do look really nice, but sorry, as I was saying, I do have a dedicated like WotC vintage display case, and that is my least talked about, least asked about in my experience. I mean, I don't know what to tell you, but I do pick it up because while they are slow sellers, they are more stable compared to like your alt arts and stuff, where, you know, your Gengar might double in price in 2 months. Your vintage stuff is, for the most part, pretty stable. So you can think of that what you will. They don't change up or down too often, but liquidity wise, they aren't the greatest, but I do pick them up, and I always have a stash because I know most people that are buying Pokemon are nostalgic for the WotC. All right, and then this little stack I grabbed is all PSA 10 WotC era stuff. So stuff like the Lucky Stadium, Pokemon Center, these are pretty sought after. You know, to me, I've said this before, they look like bulk cards, but these are pretty expensive. I think they're like, you know, over $1,000 each for sure in PSA 10s. 10s are harder to find, and they are kind of hard to sell in the sense that, you know, they're pretty expensive and there's not too many people searching for them, because this Celebi 10 might be worth a couple $1,000s, but a 9 might just be a couple hundred. So you're paying an extreme premium to get that 10. So while it is kind of nice to have the creme de la creme, they do kind of sit for a while. Stuff like Togetic PSA 10. First edition, unlimited, doesn't really matter. These I've had many. I've had base set, jungle, literally all kinds of hollows. They don't do too well. I don't know if it's just because people don't like paying extra for the 10, or maybe, you know, vintage isn't just too hot these days. Everyone's on the alt art grind. But yeah, even these are a little bit harder to sell, and because they're like lower pop, they do tend to have fewer solds, and some don't even have solds at all, so they're kind of harder to price, and because of that, you might be taking a bigger risk. But where there's bigger risk, there's bigger reward. So I always try to pick these up to get a little variation as well, but they do tend to sit a while along with the others. These over here, this is the banger pile, this is the crystals and gold stars. So I have 3 crystal Lugias. We have a PSA 2, PSA 8, and a PSA 9. These are everyone's grails. Pretty liquid. I would say like S tier in terms of liquidity. If I put these out in one show, at a big show, these all 3 will probably be gone. Same goes for the gold stars, of course. Stuff like the reverse hollowed e-readers and like these will probably sit for a while, maybe 1 or 2, 3 shows, but they're honestly not that bad. I'd rather have these, like I'd rather have a PSA 4 Crystal Celebi reverse than maybe like a PSA 8 or 9 of those other earlier WotC cards. This one would sell a lot faster. Charizard e-reader, a little bit underrated for the dragon. I had tons of people be like, oh, I've never seen that Charizard before. And then of course we have the gold stars. So everyone knows what a gold star is. Everyone loves gold stars. I got the trio right here from Team Rocket Returns. I got an extra Mudkip. We have the Mudkip PSA 8, Torchic 7, and a Trico 7. These 3 are some of the most popular gold stars. People love getting the trios. Same thing, I had 3 Mudkips at Atlanta. If you watch one of the earlier videos where like I graded a bunch of the gold stars, I had 3 Mudkips and they all sold instantly. And they were like PSA 3, 4, like really low grades. So the higher grades sell even faster. Very sought after. You can't go wrong with gold stars at all. They're at the top of every collector's list. And because of that, they do demand quite the premium and are very expensive. I have the Gold Star Dog PSA 10 trio. Now, these are the cheapest of all the gold stars just because there's so many, the population is insanely high on these. While they are very nice, if you're trying to get into gold stars, the dogs are usually most people's first choice, and because of that, they are pretty popular. In 9s, they go from like, $300-400, and in 10s, they're anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500, which while still expensive, is a fraction of the price of most other gold stars in PSA 10. You know, like Rayquaza, Charizard, all those are like tens and thousands of dollars. So being able to get stuff like this, PSA 10 dogs, very, very nice. And then of course, Grail on Grails from Deoxys. We have the Rayquaza PSA 8 multi-$1,000 Grail card right here. Love selling these. And then of course the Latios as well. This one is actually signed on the case from the artist from 2020, it seems like. I got it as is, so this is pretty cool. PSA 9 is usually the highest you're gonna see for most of these. Stuff like this, 9 and under do very, very well. So I would always try to pick up, and even if you have to pay like higher than you normally would for gold stars, definitely worth it. They're very, very liquid. Now we have, I guess, Charizards. First edition Blaine's Charizard, a bunch of Dark Charizard holos. I've had many, many Dark Charizard first edition PSA 9s, and suffice to say, you would think Charizard does really, really well. I also have a display case dedicated for Charizard, and it's kind of hit or miss. I think it just depends on how lucky I am for people to see. Sometimes I'll sell tons of Charizards at a show, and sometimes I won't sell any, but I guess it's not all Charizards. But we have the stuff like this. These are like in the $1,000 range. Again, 9s are, I don't want to say poor people 10s, but like 9s are literally 2 specks of whitening, or, you know, like 1 light scratch away from being a 10. So most people go for 9s compared to 10s. And I, you know, tend to agree. If you're wanting to go for more quantity than quality, you can definitely get like a lot more 9s for your value instead of, you know, picking up 1 10. You could probably get all of these 3 cheaper than you can get one of these in a 10. For example. We have some other one. Again, the WotC stuff, I don't know, I'll probably say it multiple times during the video. First edition, PSA 9, like, they're not too liquid. I have to say, these set, I've had Pidgey out before, I've had Hitmonlee before, and they sat for multiple shows. So going through, I'm gonna be sitting, or benching, if you will, a bunch of the WotC. I might have to sell them online or something like that just because I have a surplus. Stuff like this though, Clefable pre-release, all the really niche and kind of trying to show it to you guys. The pre-release symbol, this kind of unique stuff, while it is niche, it does add a little bit of uniqueness to your case. So while it might not be the fastest seller, it's kind of like a breath of fresh air from, like, you know, just having cookie cutter display cases everyone else have. So I would try and pick these up if you can at a reasonable price. Don't expect to sell them really fast, but just to make your case a little bit more unique. Let me see if there's anything cool. Coro Mew, very underrated. Well, I don't think it's underrated. Great artwork. I'd say it's a very popular card. Now, base set, like base set Venusaur, base set Blastoise, these are a dime a dozen, let's be real. Everyone is nostalgic for it, but also at the same time, you're gonna find hundreds of these if you go to a card show. Stuff like these common cards as well are also not gonna do too well, just because, you know, it's a common card. Most people are trying to look for shiny things in your display cases, and these don't really stand out. Gonna be harder to sell these kind of slabs. These are kind of more reserved, in my opinion, if you sell online. That way you can get a ton more eyes and people can search for them. But as far as shows go, if you have other stuff to replace it with, I would refrain from doing non-holographic vintage cards that at least like even aren't 10s, you know what I mean? And here is an absolute banger, probably the most expensive card, I think that I currently have right now and that you're gonna see in this video. It is the 2016 Festa PSA 10. This is the first time I've ever owned this card. I've wanted it for such a long time because it has Bulbasaur right there. And I got it, you know, in part of the collection, so proud to own it now. Very cool. For some reason, I don't know why, I'm not like well versed, but like this 2017 Festa is maybe like $1,000 or so, but this 2016 is worth maybe $8,000. So not too sure how. Maybe it's just based on like the artwork itself. Everyone loves Pikachu promos, hands down. The Japanese yeah, this is all like Japanese Pikachu promos. These always do really good. Some people have never seen this before and they don't even know where it comes from, but they just really like the artwork. A lot of people just collect for the art. So stuff like this, there's like a $400 card. PSA 10, you would buy it literally just because you think it looks cool. Next up, this is the, like, it's a campaign set. I think there's 6 of them total. It's the like Ash's Pikachu not Let's Go, something like that. But it's a cool, stuff like this is cool to sell online, but I do think, again, it takes up a lot of space in your display cases. Like this full set would be 6 spaces, And I have to say, if you are trying to sell sets, maybe you can like stack it up like that instead, but it'd be harder for people to like realize. They'll have to like intentionally be looking for it. So sets are cool in my opinion, but kind of like sealed, they do take up a lot of space. Stuff like the Unigaba set, for example, like it's a really liquid set, but because it takes so much spaces, it's, unless you're able to like stack it and people ask for it, it's kind of hard to display and sell it. So that's kind of one downside. And then of course we have the Munch Pikachu promos. I think I have every single one in here, not too sure, but PSA 10, this one's a banger right here. Any kind of Japanese exclusive promos does really, really well, especially like the Eevees, the Munches, stuff like these. Even in low grades, like a 7 Mimikyu still probably goes for over $1,000. Everyone loves these. In general, trying to sell PSA 10 Japanese is a little bit of a, I try not to, but when it comes to stuff like this, I already know it's gonna sell regardless of the grade, so I do pick those up as well. And now we have some EX cards. So we have Gengar, Mewtwo EX, PSA 9 and 5. These are some very, very sought after cards themselves, like the Gengar, not so sought after in a 5, but just the card itself is a pretty good one. These will still sell pretty well. In my opinion, like, you know, I'm very nostalgic for the EX cards. They also don't tend to be too popular though. Like this Mewtwo will, but in general, like your run-of-the-mill EX will probably sit for a while, even in 10s. I have a couple of 10s that sit in the case, like Aerodactyl or like, I don't know, Aggron. Like those will sit even in 10s, 9s. I don't think they are too popular in the masses. These are kind of smaller ones, some reverses. These are the Dittos. I got the PSA 10 reverses. I'm going to keep these for myself. I'm trying to get them all in a 10, but I figured I'm just going to keep the 9s until I get the 10s as a placeholder, and then whenever I get it, swap it out. That way it just looks better on the wall, fills it up. I do think the EX reverses are pretty funny, especially the Ditto ones. These do, honestly, I don't even know, because I haven't sold these too often, and they're very rare to find. I would say the 10s probably sell really well. The 9s probably don't. Got some more cards that I picked up for myself. These are all purely PC, so I got this Absol from Dragon. I happen to collect all the Dragon Hollows now. Since I have so many, I figured might as well get them all. Bulbasaur, Detective Pikachu, pretty rare card, PSA 10, but I got it for like, I don't know, 50 bucks. Skybridge 10s, I try to pick these up whenever I can. And then an absolute buttload of Master Balls. I just tried the Skybridge and the Master Balls, I'm trying to finish PSA 10 full set. So whenever I see the ones I need, I just pick them up. But it's nothing like I'm like crazy searching for. Got some more Japanese cards. Japanese does tend to do very well only in 10s, as I said before. Like if you have a PSA 9 modern Japanese card, that thing is probably going to sit for a while. But stuff like Charizard 151 PSA 10, these do well because they tend to be a little bit, well actually a lot cheaper than your English counterpart. So some argue that Japanese looks better, and so you're getting a better looking card for a cheaper price. So they're very popular. It's a lot more budget oriented. Squirtle right here, probably like, I don't know, 30 bucks Japanese 10, and in English is like 150 or something. So you can get a lot of bang for your buck buying Japanese instead of English when they're graded 10s. Yeah, see, they just have like a different shine to it. But, you know, I don't try to, I pick them up when I can. I don't think they're my bread and butter per se. I do think the English sells faster, but they still have their place in the market. Stuff like, and I'm pretty sure I can't think of any alt art that's more expensive in Japanese than English, save for a few like from Eevee Heroes or so. We got some older EX cards. I don't know if these are worth that much. Lugia probably is, but Japanese EX cards, in my experience, harder to sell and cheaper than English PSA EXs. And as I said before, the English PSA EXs don't sell too well, probably wouldn't sell very well at a show. So I'd probably hold off from selling these. I'd probably do these online only. Got some more Japanese. Now these are more, I guess, random. But we have the Crystal Golem PSA 10s. Now, again, when it comes to English versus Japanese, these are a lot cheaper than the English counterparts, especially this one. I don't even think it's the same as alt arts where people are trying to get like a cheaper deal. I do think there's like a different market. A lot of people collect like first edition versus unlimited, and the texture is a lot more distinguishable from the old vintage stuff. Like the Crystal Golem doesn't look anything like this in English, whereas like the modern stuff is like a slight difference. It's a lot more distinguishable on the old stuff. Like this card is literally golden, whereas the English card is just black. So pretty big difference there. I don't think they sell oh, the Golem might. Well, to be fair, I've had some Crystal PSA 10 sit for a good amount of time. I would say they're all right. Not too bad, but not too great either. CD promos are quite popular. I'd say they're probably pretty much up there. Maybe like people's first Japanese Pokemon cards. They are pretty cool. Unique artworks as well. If it's not a 10 though, in my opinion, they do sit. It kind of falls in that same category. Kind of Japanese WotC in general. I personally don't really deal with it at all unless it's a 10, and even then, because I believe most of the sets have guaranteed holos and they're a higher quality, so the 10s are easier to hit, and therefore, you know, you might find a PSA 10 Japanese holo for like $100, whereas in English it'd be like 1,000. So it's not too valuable either. Stuff like these EX cards though, like this card I've had for a while and they have absolutely tanked on me. I bought one like a year ago and they sold a long time ago for $2,000, $1,500, and I ended up selling it at a loss just because they're so hard to sell. And I had it for a year. So I sat on it for a year and then I also lost money on it. That's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. I bought it again knowing full well that I could lose my money, but it is what it is. I figured maybe give it another crack at it because I'm buying it at the low already, kind of dollar cost averaging, if you will. And then stuff like this, again, a lot more easily accessible to get a 10 of your EX card compared to English. More of the Japanese vintage, this kind of stuff would do really well, but I don't think they're too valuable. Like this Neo for Alligator in English PO10 would be worth a lot of money, but this one, not so much. Tag teams, modern Japanese. I think modern Japanese does have a solid place right now, but again, it is a lot cheaper. So in my opinion, I do prefer English if it is available in English. I try to only do Japanese if it's like a Japanese exclusive, but there are many people that do collect Japanese. One, maybe because the art texture is just a lot better. Maybe they enjoy the cheaper version of getting a 10, but in all regards, I don't think they do. I would say they're like average or so. I think the tag teams themselves, just because they're tag teams, kind of carries it. But something like this Groudon might sit for a couple shows, but not like a whole year like those EXs. Stuff like this Charizard, I think it really depends on the actual card themselves and the grade. If it's not a 10, it's automatically infinitely harder for you to sell it as if it's Japanese. But because it's already a 10, a lot of people kind of disregard the fact that it's Japanese and say, it's cheaper and it's a 10. Why not buy it even though it's not English? These kind of items I wouldn't really bring. These are kind of bargain bin, if you will, like under 50 items that you kind of, at this point for me, they take up the valuable display case because you only have an allocation of how many slabs you can fit in your displays. So instead of putting like a $30, $50 slab, I could put in a $500 slab. So these at this point tend to sell online exclusively just because, you know, I'd rather put something else that's a little bit more valuable, but they are really nice for those people that are looking on the budget. People are saying, like, do you have anything under $50? I'll whip these out because getting a 10 for under 50 bucks when it costs, you know, the average person $20 to grade it is a pretty good deal. So like having a couple of those on deck. We still got some absolute juicy bangers to go through. These are all Shadowless and Shadowless First Edition. I completely overlooked this stack, but I have a bunch of Charizards. Now, I'm not a big Charizard guy myself. I know. This is everyone's favorite Pokemon. Base set Charizard's the grail of grails, all that. Shadowless Charizard does pretty good, if I have to say. Base set, not so much like regular base set, and then First Edition does really good as well. So even like the 6s, the 8s, these will do really well. But the other, I have to say, other than the Charizard, every other Shadowless, Venusaur, Blastoise, Gyarados, they don't do as well, in my opinion. So while Charizard might be like an A tier in terms of liquidity, these are a slight notch above regular base, regular like WotC items, but they're still kind of slow movers. They will sell eventually, but they're just not like, oh my gosh, he has them, they're gonna be gone this show. I'll probably have these for a couple shows. The First Edition ones, now these are, again, a step higher. They are a lot more expensive, and therefore you might get like lower grades like 7s and such. But these are like, if you're an Alakazam collector, this is a one of the grails. So these do pretty good in terms of trading. I do a lot of trades with first edition PSA 7, and you know, there's the occasional person that just wants to straight up buy it. So first edition average grades is kind of what I call them. They're not like high end 9, 10s, but they're not low end like 5, 6s. The 7 and 8s are pretty much like a near mint binder copy. They're not like the perfect card, but good enough. It's a serviceable grade, and they're right in that perfect Goldilocks zone. I think the 7 is really for people's budget to condition. And oh, right there, we have the Grail of Grails, Charizard base set, first edition. They are 6s, but even in a 6, these are thousands of, like, this is probably over 10K combined. Everyone wants a chance to own the Grail of a Grail, even if it's a 6, because, you know, they just want to have the card itself. A lot of trading going on. I'm pretty sure most of the times I've ever had Charizard first edition, people trade them. But again, it's literally iconic and they always do well. Same goes for the big 3. Very, very, I wouldn't say easy to sell, but they're very recognizable. Stuff like this though, however, these are the common cards. So you have Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, Wartortle, non-holographic first edition. These are very, very expensive cards, probably like on average like $1,000 each. How many people are gonna pay that much for an Ivysaur PSA 10? Not that many people in the world are buying that. Usually if you're trying to, you know, if you're a huge Ivysaur collector for something, you're trying to complete the big 3. But other than that, it's very, very hard to sell something like this for, you know, what it's worth, like $1,000 plus. Bulbasaur for that same thing, I happen to collect it. But, you know, for example, Squirtle, it's not as, I think Bulbasaur is actually the most expensive out of the 3. But stuff like the Wartortle, the Charmeleon, the middle evolutions, these won't sell too easily. Now you could bundle them together, like I could do this 3, I could do all the other 3, and then you could try and hope to sell it like that. But in general, they are not going to be, honestly, they're going to be quite hard to sell. I think this is the last stack of vintage, and then it's more modern stuff. So this is regular base set Charizards. The 9, I think the 9s have been going up, or just in general, like base set Charizard has been going up. Now at every show, I have an entire row of base set 2 Charizards. And if I'm honest, they don't really sell too well. You would think, wow, I have 4 PSA 7s. You would think you know, they would fly off the shelf. It's Charizard base set, everyone's dream. It's like a cheaper version of the first edition. But I think it's because it's so popular. And at this point, you know, if you already want it, you probably already have it. Shadowless, that should have been in the other thing. But like the regular Venusaur, any other base set holos, or even for that matter, again, first edition, they are just a little bit harder to sell. Vintage in general, in my opinion, does not sell that well at the shows. Show the rest of what we got. Vaporeon, Gyarados. I think there was another one of those. Just a mix of everything. All this stuff is pretty much cookie cutter. You'll find tons of these at various booths throughout any card show. CGC stuff, even more harder to sell. If you couldn't tell by now, I'm a big PSA guy. If you're trying to sell cards, there's no debate. PSA is the easiest to sell when it comes to, like, you know, buying and selling. On that note, I do have an absolute stack of BGS slabs. Now this was supposed to be another one, but because it was BGS, I put it here. First edition BGS 9 Mewtwo. Now the only downside I would say about BGS is if it's not a 10, so like this 9 will tend to sell less than a PSA 9, even though it's, you know, the same card, they're both 9s. That's just, it is what it is. And then we have what Beckett is known for, their infamous black labels, which means it's a perfect card. These command insane premiums. If a PSA 10 is $100, the black label might be worth $1,000. They do sell very slowly because of that. They're very rare, they're very niche, and odds are there aren't any comps on them or like any solds in the past. If there are few and far between, so they do tend to sit a little bit longer, but they're pretty cool. And everyone knows that the black label is the best of the best. So if you see it in the display case, it does get that, you know, it's kind of like eye candy. So here we have a Japanese, and again, Japanese is a higher, like there's a lot more Japanese black labels because the quality is better. So odds are you're gonna have a lot more Japanese black labels come your way. Nonetheless, Charizard VMAX, having any Charizard in a black label is pretty good. So I expect this one would sell relatively easily because it's not too expensive. But next, we have not 1, not 2, but 3 Charizard Black Labels from Hidden Fates. Some would say this is the greatest Charizard of the, Sun and Moon mid-era. This is a lot of people's favorite Charizard. It comes from Hidden Fates, one of the best sets. Black Label, very hard to get. I don't know the pop on these, but I have 3 of them now. It's a very, very rare card to get, not only to just pull in general, but on the fact that you also get a Black Label. This is the first time I've ever owned these. I do suspect, even though it is the Charizard, it probably will still sit for a while, just because, I think they go for like $4,000 or $5,000, so you can get like, what is that, 5 or 6 PSA 10s for that same price. So you have to find a true dedicated collector of Charizard to shell out the cash to pick them up. They are out there, it just takes a little bit more time to find it. And when I have multiples of like grails like these, I'm not going to bring them all because they're redundant. It's a waste of space. So I'll bring like 1 to a show. So having 3 of those, hopefully sell them within the next couple of shows. But again, eye candy, you want people to be drawn to your display cases, and Black Labels do exactly that. And a complete contrast, you have a BGS 8 Lugia, Lugia V Alt Art, which is pretty much just a raw card. Probably just crack it open to sell it easier, transport it. But more, I think they're all kind of random now. Shining Tyranitar, these go to Shining, Gengar BGS 3 now, even though it's these Skyridge Hollows have been shooting up in price. This is still a couple $100 card, even in a 3. Got some alt arts here, Glaceon VMAX BGS 10. They are worth a lot more than PSA 10, but they're also harder to sell. Like, I will sell through Glaceon VMAX PSA 10s all day, every show. The BGS 10s, on the other hand, are, they're actually a lot harder to sell, but it's probably because they're worth more, and people are like, would I rather have 2 PSAs or this? In general, maybe not 2, but you know what I mean? So they are harder to sell, but they are worth more. Stuff that's a 0.5 is harder to sell because usually they're harder to comp. And you kind of want to get more than an 8, but less than a 9. But then again, if there's no comps, then you're kind of guessing on value. So they are kind of hard to sell. Then you have stuff like the EXs. These cards in general, like the Snorlax, a very sought after card. So I think the sought afterness of the card might outweigh the fact that it's like a 0.5 or whatever. This one is a Pikachu promo that I got part of a bigger deal. Was thrown in for these 2 big boys right here. You already know what it is, the Poncho Pikachu. Now these are 9.5s. Is it worth cracking? That's something people look at when they want to buy it. Most of the time, a 9.5 is slightly more than a 9 and not really close to a 10. These are sequential as well. Ponchos also fly off the shelves. They have been booming and popular. I mean, they've always been popular, but every show I go to, people are asking for ponchos. And then to wrap it up, we have the 2 big boys right here, BGS 10 Pristines. Also sequential pair of the Charizard. These are the most expensive ponchos. Again, these will command pretty big premiums compared to PSA 10. People really love the gold 10 label of Beckett. So these will do really well, especially for trades. All right, and then now we have some modern stuff. I actually bought a buttload more of modern PSA 10s, but I had to sell them during my streams and all that. People, if they DM me and ask me for stuff for sale, I'll sell it to them. So I had a lot more, but this is what I have left. Rayquaza VMAX, pretty much anything that's modern, Sun and Moon, and Scarlet and Violet PSA 10s that are over $100. I'll pick up Charizard VMAXs. These Charizards, I'm pretty sure there's not a single show where I won't have these. They are pretty much a staple. If you're a Charizard collector, everyone's always looking for them, so I'll always have a couple of those. Then we have the regular PSA 10 version of the Charizard from Hidden Fates. 151 stuff. You have the Charizard. I don't know if I have all of them. Maybe I do. No, I don't. I just have those out of the sets. 151 is a very, very popular set right now. The shinies from Hidden Fates. The evolutions do good. Everything else is like pretty cheap, like under $50, so I usually don't buy them. Bubble Muse. I don't think I have any English ones. This is, beside the Van Gogh Pikachu, Bubble Mew was the most asked about card. At every show, people are like, oh, do you have Bubble Mew? Do you have the raw one? Do you have the PSA 10? I don't. Every time I come across one, I try to pick it up, and right now they're like an insane value. Like they're super, super expensive. Even the Japanese is going up in price. It is a great card. Everyone loves it. So stuff like this, you're kind of, when stuff is on like a trend, you're kind of FOMOing out. Do you buy Bubble Mew when it doubled in price overnight? Really, that's up to you. In my opinion, I still buy it because I'm not buying it to like speculate. I'm buying it for the percentage to flip it. And then just random PSA 10s, I have no idea what they are worth. But if it's like under $100, these go well again in like that bargain bin kind of area. Full art trainers. I believe these are the first full art trainers I saw. They do relatively well. I know the Japanese ones have been tanking for the most part. English, on the other hand, I think dropped a little, but they're still pretty consistent. If you have like the higher end ones, Lisa, Lily, you know, Cynthia, like the higher end, like over $300-500, those do pretty good. And I think they are pretty colorful. So when it comes to the eye candy, always have a nice little corner for full arts. And these I picked up. Also, they're not even Pokemon. Blackwing Dragon goes for first edition PSA 10, and then some One Piece stuff. This one I got from my personal collection, and these are just part of the collection. This is a Thai Latios PSA 10. It's a lot cheaper, but it's kind of like that Japanese, you know, you're just trying to get like the art cheaper than the English copy. So this might be a couple $100s, whereas English is a couple $1,000. So again, you're just trying to save money, getting the same artwork, just in a different language. Stuff like these XY mid-era full art PSA 10s, I really like these. These are like the first kind of tag team alt arts, if you will. And I really like the texture on them. So then you have regular Lottie's tag teams. These would do, like the Mewtwo would do really well, Pikachu would do really well, but they're not going to do as well, say like an alt art in my opinion, but they're still pretty good. I still pick them up regardless in a 10. Anything not a 10 for those is reserved for like auctions and stuff. But the Latios, like these tag teams on the other hand, even if it's a 3 or a 5, it doesn't matter the grade. People just love the card itself. So these will always sell like hotcakes. Kind of crazy how much these have gone up in price, no matter the grade. Even damaged cards go for hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I try to have them when I can, but like the last time I brought 5 of them to a show, they all sold. I had 10s, I had 9s, I had raw. They all sold. So these are also very, very popular cards. For the most part, all the popular cards that you've seen so far that sell really, really fast. Van Goghs, Lottie's, Bubble Mews, etc. In order as a reseller, you're gonna have to pay higher than you normally would compared to like a, I don't know, something else you saw, like one of the vintage cards that was a first edition PSA 8. You might be able to get a good deal for that one. You're not going to be able to get as good of a deal on stuff like that. But yes, more modern stuff. These lower end 10s, again, I try not to bring them if those will be the first to leave the display case. But I like having Charizards. I like having every set has, you know, like the hit alt arts, the Umbreon VMAX, the Sylveon VMAX. And then they have the smaller alt arts like Duraludon V, stuff like that. The smaller alt arts I will put in, but if I need room, those will be the first to go. Then you have like the newer Scarlet and Violet ones. Those are cheaper, but they are nice, so I try to have a variety for everyone. Crown Zenith. Crown Zenith has been making waves because of the reprints and all the pack prices available. But again, just more modern. Oh, I had another Charizard in there. Everyone really likes the modern stuff. You're always going to be able to sell those. They're liquid for a reason. And another Rayquaza. Those are people's probably easiest to sell, but you're going to have to be pretty competitive with your pricing because odds are the 2 vendors right next to you are going to have the same ones as well because they are a dime a dozen. That pretty much sums it up. I do have a buttload of items here. These are all just like smaller, under 100 bucks, like these kind of items. Now I reserve these for my whatnot streams. Stuff like these. Primes, I collect these in PSA 9, but if I don't have it, I'll get the 8s or any other lower version, put it on my wall over there. And then, whenever I do get the 9, swap it out, then I can sell it after. Everything here is under $50 slab, so it's kind of like bulk. Don't want to go through all of those. That pretty much sums it up, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed and learned a thing or two about how I think about the items I buy, how well they do in my opinion. And again, all this stuff in and of itself is more than enough to be its own show inventory. But combined with the ones I already have, I'm going to have my work cut out for me. Picking up, kind of drafting what to bring. Because again, limited space, limited display, cases. So it's going to be a little bit of a Tetris game next year. but we'll be able to sell it all. If you're interested in anything that you saw here or anything I might have, you can always DM me on Instagram at the Bulba Store. And if you want to sell stuff, you can also message me there as well. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day. Every single month we do a giveaway for our members. Last month's winner for the Radiant Charizard PSA 10 is Nikhil, who's actually a Vine Whip member, so congrats to him. Every member is entered into the giveaway, no matter what tier, so if you're interested in joining, scroll down and hit the join button right next to the subscribe button. If you don't see it, that means you have to do it on a computer. This month's giveaway is the Pikachu full art from Crown Zenith PSA 10. Super cool. Good luck to everybody, and thank you to our YouTube members. So for our Solar Beam supporters, we have Michael W, Zam, Bitter Beings, Clyde, Bronze God 321, Nick C, Lasse Kronborg, and our Razor Leaf members Izzy, Will B, Robert, Nick Musica, Jay Namath, Darren Castro, Liz Sawyer, Hachi Ken, Chasing Celebi, Sealy 52, Poke Trainer Pat, Darkest Bull, The Sickness X, and Flaccid Shrimp.